get started, I'm just gonna give us a few minutes to see who shows up. And I believe we're going to be sending out a recording of this to anybody who wants it, or if you do want to drop that in the chat. But first of all, good afternoon. I'm so grateful that you decided to spend part of your day with me. And for those of you who don't know, I am Sandra, CEO of Master Technology. I've spent the last 25 years working with attractions of all kinds, from museums, cultural centers, zoos, water parks, and family entertainment centers. I'm very excited to share with you some of the things that I have learned. And one of those things is, no matter what the type of operation you have, your mission is what drives everything. And for you, it's preserving history, it's educating your community, it's creating experiences that people remember long after they leave. And that's why you got into this work. You didn't wake up one day and say, I want to spend my career chasing paperwork, filing spreadsheets, or trying to get software systems to talk to you. And yet, for so many organizations, this is exactly what's happening. Instead of spending time on your mission, your team spends time managing administrative headaches. And yeah, that's why we're here today. Today is not a sales pitch. It's really a conversation about how technology should support your mission and not become another obstacle standing in your way. My goal today is simple. I want to show you how the right operational strategy can reduce stress on your staff, create a better guest experience, improve fundraising, and ultimately free up your team so you can focus on what you do best. So let's start with some real-world examples. I always like starting with organizations that are doing really well. This is Ponce de Leon, Fountain of Youth, an archaeological park in St. Augustine, Florida. Think about everything they manage on every single day. Thousands of tourists, school groups, educational programming, retail, admissions, special events, memberships. The list goes on. And they may have all the same operational challenges that many of you have, but there is one difference. And that is that they removed a lot of the operational friction that you see behind the scenes. Their admission team, their gift shop, their administration, and their reporting are all working from the same source of information. When a school group books online, everyone already knows what's happening before the bus arrives. Instead of reacting all day long, the staff can actually focus on what's in front of them, the guest that's standing in front of them. And I think that's a really important part, because technology should not replace hospitality. It should make hospitality easier. Because when your team isn't fighting the system, they have more time to connect with people, and they have more time to connect with the people who are walking through your doors. And that really is the goal. So let's flip the conversation. What happens when those systems are not connected? This is where I think a lot of organizations find themselves today. Think about booking a school field trip. How many emails does this usually involve? Phone calls, spreadsheets, paper forms. Someone updates a calendar, somebody sends an invoice, somebody forgot to reply, maybe somebody has to print a roster, and everyone is working hard to make this event happen. But when they are working harder than they should have to, I often find many of the staff is working harder than they should have to. And let's talk about when the day arrives, when the day finally arrives where the guests visit. 50 students arrive and get off the tour bus or off of the bus. A tour leader walks in, and maybe one of your longtime members arrives at the exact same time. So I'm trying to paint this picture for you. And then suddenly everybody is standing in line because the systems don't know who anybody is. Meanwhile, your staff is searching through emails, typing in names, looking for reservations, reconciling payments, trying to keep the line moving while the guests are wondering why the experience feels stressful before they even walked inside. Now, after 25 years in this industry, I can tell you this usually isn't a people problem. It's a system problem. Your staff didn't come to work hoping to spend their day on data entry. They came because they care about the people that they're serving, the guests, and your mission. When technology gets in the way, everyone loses. And unfortunately, that creates a cost that most organizations never actually measure. I'll call it the fragmentation cost or the fragmentation tax. One of the biggest hidden expenses I see across the industry, and forgive me, guys, I'm a dyslexic. I always have to tell people, I'm sorry. I think I'm saying the right word, and then I say the wrong word. But the biggest thing that I really want you to focus on right now is that fragmentation tax. And it is one of the things that I see across the industry and have seen for a long time. And it is not because somebody writes a check for it. It's because organizations pay for it every single day without even realizing it. Every disconnected software system, every spreadsheet, every duplicate entry, every manual process, every time someone has to look in 3 different places just to get one guest an answer. That's all part of the fragmentation tax. Industry studies estimate organizations lose as much as 35% of their operational efficiency because of disconnected systems. And I want you to think about that, not because your team isn't talented, and that's not because your team isn't working hard. It is simply because the technology isn't working together. Instead of building relationships with donors or serving guests or growing memberships or creating educational programs, your team is busy being a detective. They're chasing information instead of chasing experiences. And the good news is, this is one of the easiest problems to solve. Because once your systems begin talking to one another, everything changes. So let's talk about what that transformation actually looks like. So we're going to shift to strategy. So if that's the problem, the fragmentation tax, what is the solution? One of the biggest mindset shifts we help organizations make is this: the guest experience doesn't start when someone walks through the front gate. It starts the moment they decide to visit. Think about your own life. When you travel, buy concert tickets, or reserve a hotel, you expect most of the work to happen before you actually arrive. The same should be true for museums and cultural attractions. Instead of asking your front desk staff to verify payments, count students, check memberships, and answer questions while the guests are standing in line, let's move that work upstream. Imagine a school teacher booking online. They upload their roster ahead of time. Payment is complete. Everyone already has their tickets. Memberships are verified. Everything is ready before the bus ever pulls up in the parking lot. And now your front gate becomes exactly what it should be: a welcome center, not an administrative office. One of the goals we encourage is moving about 80% of guest transactions to happen before they arrive. When guests arrive prepared, your staff can spend their time welcoming people instead of processing paperwork. And that's a way better experience for everyone. And once you accomplish that, something really exciting happens. Today's guests expect convenience. They're using mobile boarding passes, mobile hotel keys, mobile concert tickets. So why should it be different when visiting a museum or a cultural center? When guests purchase online, their membership, admission tickets, school group voucher are all directly loaded in an Apple Wallet or Google Wallet. That means when they arrive, they don't have to search through emails. They don't have to remember confirmation numbers. They don't have to stand in another line as someone manually looks them up. They can simply walk in and scan. That sounds like a very small change, but psychologically, it's a huge one. Think about how you feel when you arrive somewhere and immediately have to wait in line. You're frustrated before your experience even begins. Now compare that to walking straight through the gate. You're relaxed, you're excited, you're ready to explore. That's a positive first impression that carries through the entire visit. And interestingly enough, when people spend less time waiting, they tend to spend more time and often more money enjoying the experience, visiting your gift shop, grabbing lunch, or supporting your organization in other ways. The guest experience starts long before the first exhibit. So, what does this actually look like after implementation? Now, I love this slide because it really tells the story. On the left is the way many organizations operate today. On the right is what happens when everything is working together. Instead of endless email chains for school groups, guests manage their own information through an online portal. The system does it consistently. Instead of management wondering what happened across admission, retail memberships, and fundraising, you have one operational dashboard showing the entire operation. And that's really what we're after: clarity, consistency, and visibility. One thing I've learned working with attractions for the last 25 years is that great operations aren't built because people work harder. They're built because good systems make it easier for good people to succeed. Your employees shouldn't have to memorize complicated processes. The software should support them every step of the way. And when that happens, stress goes down, confidence goes up, guest satisfaction improves, and your team gets to spend more time doing what they actually love. And one of the places this makes the biggest difference is in fundraising. So I want to spend a minute just talking about donations because I think this is one of the biggest missed opportunities for many organizations. I've worked with enough attractions over the years to know that something is true. Your staff genuinely cares. They want to support your mission, but when there's a line out the door, the phone is ringing, the school bus just arrived, and 3 guests all have questions, it's completely understandable that asking for a donation slips somebody's mind. And that's why I don't believe fundraising should depend on memory. It should be built into the experience. Instead of hoping someone remembers to ask, the system can simply prompt every guest. Would you like to round up? Would you like to support educational programming? Would you like admissions? Would you like to upgrade your mission to a membership? Every guest gets that same opportunity every single time. It's consistent, it's natural, and because it's built into your checkout process, your team doesn't have to feel like they're selling. They're simply giving guests the opportunity to support something they already care about. And behind the scenes, everything is tracked automatically. Admissions, retail, food and beverage, memberships, education. The software handles the accounting and the reporting while giving you a complete picture of what each guest relationship looks like. That's powerful because now you're making decisions based on data instead of assumptions. So does this actually work? Absolutely. And I'm going to show you a few examples from organizations that are using this strategy. So one of our clients, Lost Treasure, implemented these same automated upsell prompts through their point of sale and online purchasing experience. The result, they increased their ancillary revenue by 300%. Not because they hired more employees, not because they became more aggressive with sales. They simply gave every guest the same opportunity. Another example is Summer Splash. In just one season, they shifted their online transactions from 30% to nearly 80%. Think about what this means operationally. Fewer people waiting in line, less pressure on the front gate, more predictable staffing, a smoother guest experience, and happier employees because they're serving guests instead of managing chaos. The point isn't that every organization will have the same exact numbers. The point is that the strategy works. And whether you're a museum or cultural center, zoo, a historic site, the principles are exactly the same. When you remove friction, everybody wins. And that's only possible when your technology is working together. So I also want to point out something that's really important. We don't believe that one company should try to do everything. And there are incredible companies out there that are specializing in access control, specializing in payment processing, companies that are focused on donation management. And our philosophy has always been this: use the best tool available. Then make sure they all communicate well. That's where GateMaster comes in. We become the central hub that keeps everything connected, whether it's an Alvarado turnstile, Explore Pay for secure payment processing, Teak for ticket protection, Donation Match for helping automate community giving, or Intercard supporting interactive cashless experiences. The goal isn't more software, it's one connected ecosystem. Because once everything is connected, your team stops bouncing between systems and starts making decisions with confidence. So let's talk about what this could look like for your organization. Every museum is different. Every historical site is different. Every cultural center has a unique programming, membership structure, donor relationship, and operational challenges. And that's why we don't believe in a one-size-fits-all approach or a one-size-fits-all presentation. Instead, I would like to invite 5 organizations to spend time with our team, not for a sales pitch, but for a working session. We'll sit down together and map out your current operation, identify where your time and revenue are leaking, and simply look for opportunities. Maybe there are things you're doing really well, and that's fantastic. Maybe there are a few adjustments that we could save your time, hours, save your team hours every week. And we're going to help you identify those too. Whether you decide to work with us afterwards is completely up to you. The value is having another set of experienced eyes looking at your operation, and that is priceless. And as a thank you for taking action today, the first 5 organizations to schedule that working session with us will receive 10% off of their onboarding. If that's something you'd like to explore, go ahead and scan the QR code that's on the screen, and I'll give you just a second to do that. Before we wrap up. So if today isn't the right time to do a working session, that's perfectly okay too. I never want someone to leave one of my presentations without something they can put it into practice immediately. And that's why we've also included a link to download our museum and cultural blueprint workbook. You'll find practical checklists, best practices, and ideas that you can start implementing on your own right away with your team. Whether you decide to work with us or not, I just hope that this helps. Also, I would love to invite you to join us at the GT Summit in February in Arvada, Colorado. One of my favorite parts of this industry is that we're all learning from each other. This summit brings together attraction leaders from across the country to share ideas, solve problems, and talk about what's happening next. If conversations like today resonate with you, I think you would really enjoy being a part of that community. And I also want to thank you for joining us today. And as a thank you for joining us today, I would like to include a special discount for the summit registration. So before I wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought. After 25 years in this industry, I've become convinced that technology isn't what transforms organizations. People do. Technology simply gives good people the freedom to do their best work. And when your staff spends less time managing systems, they spend more time serving guests, more time educating children, more time preserving history, more time building relationships with donors and members, And that's really what this is all about, helping your mission have a bigger impact. I want to thank you so much for spending part of your day with me. And for the last 10 minutes or so, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. We have any questions from the audience today?
Yes. How long does it take for a total beginner to learn how to use this and implement the strategies?
So, one of the great things about working with Gatemaster, and I think something that is definitely a differentiator for us, is that it is a managed system. So we really focus on the strategy of what is guest facing. So how do I manage the team and how do I manage the interaction of the system as far as it impacts the team and your best practices. So in the beginning, I would say somewhere between, ideally, I would say 6 to 3 months, between six or 3 and 6 months would be our ideal scenario, not because we can't set the system up or we can't put it in place faster, but because your team has to learn something new, and we want to be able to help facilitate that through training and education. And then also, how does it fit into your business? So giving you time to understand how to adjust your SOPs and other processes that might be connected to your buyers or your guest buying journey.
Nice. Another question here. How do older members who are not tech savvy handle the shift to mobile passes and online booking?
Well, here's what I will say. My 85-year-old father-in-law knows how to use an Apple phone better than me and is using this technology. And so I think, first of all, we can't underestimate the capabilities of an older generation. And I do understand that there are going to be people who don't fit that profile, like my 85-year-old father-in-law. But this is where I think, the guest experience is important. It's important that we still keep a ticket booth option open, or we do give other options where we can meet guests where they're at. So for those who are not in or able or capable of being able to use a cell phone to do many of these things, we just want to make sure that we have other options and we have teams that are trained on how to handle that. I hope that answers that question.
I think it does. Circling back to your example with Lost Treasure, can you elaborate more on what they did to achieve that 300% more in revenue?
So one of the things that we recommended to Lost Treasure, they had a lot of offerings. And one of the things that we did was present them in different packages so that the guest had a built-in experience that they could choose from by choosing the package that fit whatever their needs were. Maybe that was price and budget. Maybe that was time, how long they wanted to spend there, or maybe it was just an elevated experience. And so the way that we were able to strategize with them was by creating those packages that then allowed the guests to have more options versus just going through the buying experience and saying, I want to buy this, and then I want to buy this. And it takes away from, I don't like to call it upselling, but it's definitely upsell, but it's built into the package. It creates a valuable package that people could see all of the offerings in one place, and they can also make decisions about how they wanted their experience to be. The other thing that I want to note is that when we package different offerings, whether people buy them or not, guest satisfaction goes up because they have a better understanding of what is being offered and maybe what they might have to pay in terms of an add-on experience when they arrive. So they can plan for that as well. And so guest satisfaction goes up because now they understand a little bit more because we presented more options.
Nice. And just one more question, or well, a comment, is I know that we've had the discussion before that some institutions may think that there's a stigma around asking for donations. So why is it important to strategically place these offerings in front of clients and in front of guests to receive those donations, because we know the donations are so important?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. I know, for me, if I can just go off of my own personal experience, I'm a frequent shopper at Sprouts, and every single time I get asked to either roll up or offer a donation for education programs that they offer or and support different things they support. And I would say 50% of the time I say yes, right? But it takes it off of the cashier or the person behind the counter to ask me, and it just gives me, I think, a little more autonomy to be able to say yes or no. And I think that's important, that guests need the autonomy to be able to say yes or no. They don't feel pressured, that it is truly them wanting to give. And so when we put it in the purchase path and make it part of the purchase path, whether it's online or every person behind the desk asking the same questions and giving that same opportunity, because in some cases that is still going to have to happen. And in organizations, I think it just makes it so that the guests are accustomed to it. And the reality is most people do want to help. And so we're offering them the opportunity to help the organization continue with their mission or support some cause that's super important, or a part of whatever fundraising efforts that they might have in place at the time. But I think a lot of it just gives the guests the autonomy to say yes or no. And surprisingly, most guests want to give. So you don't know unless you ask. And what is the worst thing that happens? They say no, right? That's ultimately the worst. That's the worst thing that can happen. They say no, but what if they say yes? But what if you miss the opportunity to get that yes because we didn't make that available? So I think we're wrapping this right up on time.
Yes, there are no more questions.
All right. Well, hey, thank you again for spending your afternoon with me. If you do have any other questions, Ariana, do you mind just putting back up on the screen that slide that allows them to scan and spend time with us for a strategy session? So I sincerely want to make sure that that offer is available to you. And we have 5 slots available right now. And if you're watching this, I hope that you do take us up on this, because you don't have to interact with us or become somebody who chooses to work with us. I think we can still add value and help you create a better experience for you and your team. Thank you for being here with us today.